Hello everyone and welcome along to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. We're looking ahead to the Derby at Epsom this weekend. Sam Turner, as usual, in his spot on the left-hand side, and in the middle, Steve Mellish, a man who reminded me about a week ago that your first Derby was Troy's way back in 1979, and has it remained a magical race for you since then, Steve?
Yeah, well, it has. I've missed very few since then, but I was lucky. It wasn't just a derby. It turns out to be a really great derby. Certainly one of the great derby winners. And I've said this before, but I won't take long. But it was a horrendous day to start with. When my father drove us there, who was the world's worst driver I've ever known. And he had about,
that's Rishi though.
Oh no, gosh. And he only knew sort of two ways to get anywhere. You know, he'd go out of his way just so he could start in the direction of you. Anyway, if you live in London, our part of the world, there were places you didn't want to go down, Purley High Street and things like this. Anyway, we left at 10:30 in the morning from Catford, which is about 45 minutes away from Epsom. Yeah. And I got out at Tapman Corner to make sure I made the first. And the language coming out from the car from my dad, my mum was tactfully saying things like, "I'm not sure you should have gone that way, Bob." It was horrendous. Anyway, there you go.
Sam, I've spoken with Steve. I know a lot of people have mentioned it over the last few years about the position of the Derby in the sporting landscape. Still remains, for me, the best race, at least on the flat. I absolutely adore it.
Yeah. And
I love the test. What about you?
Yeah, it's just got a sense of pomp, history and heritage, hasn't it, really? You hark back to your childhood when you started watching them. The middle of the track absolutely ablaze with people and colour and noise, and there's just a gravitas to the Derby as well, I think. Like the main races and the jumps as well, that you just get that feeling, that history and that pedigree of. And they're great occasions. More, they are like a cup final, aren't they? They are like a Wimbledon final if you're lucky enough to go there and speak to the winning player afterwards. So they are. There's just a sense of atmosphere that you don't see replicated at many other meetings, really. Looking forward to this weekend. Should be brilliant.
Yeah, it should be brilliant. It generally always turns out to be a terrific race, despite all the pre-race discussions that we have about the quality, etc. Steve, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later on, but there's a lot to talk about with regards to the Derby in terms of the race, obviously, the quality of the horses lining up, a little bit about the timing of the Derby this year, how it fits in with the FA Cup and this. It's
the payoff for having a Saturday Derby. I mean, not going to make a big thing, but if you go down the route, if you're in favour of having a Saturday Derby, you've got to accept it's going to play second fiddle when there's a big event. Whether it's a European Championship we did a few years ago, this time it's the FA Cup final. The problem with policing for both major events. That's the disadvantage of having on Saturday. I accept there's advantages, but in a sense, a Wednesday Derby, it stood alone. Unless you were very, very unlucky. It was a major sporting event and it took up the main news press. Sam works for a newspaper. I suspect there'll be, more news written about the FA Cup final than there will about.
Well, yeah.
That's just how it is. But that's the downside, whether it's right or wrong, for having a Saturday Derby.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you would say is that when we have a late Derby and something big happens early on in the day, then the words that you would get in the newspaper would be quite limited.
Yeah.
But with an early Derby, if it's a final one for Frankie Dettori, you're almost assured of getting a good spread. Copy being early, people can allocate pages, etc., etc.
Absolutely.
It might make it a little bit better for coverage Sunday morning.
Okay, lots to chat about with regards to the Derby, the Oaks, Coronation Cup. We'll be looking ahead to that in just a moment. But of course, there's been a lot of good racing that we've had over the last week or so. So it's time for this week's Racing Recap. We start with a look back at classic action at the Curragh from the weekend, and the Irish 2000 Guineas. Surprise, surprise, Aidan O'Brien is back with a winner. What did you make of Paddington? What did you make of Paddington's progression this season?
Both. I think in terms of what he achieved, it's pretty similar standard to our Guineas. I mean, just judging by the likes of High Royal, I think it's probably a similar standard to Chaldine. In terms of what he's achieved at the moment. I think the upside for Paddington, and I don't know if Sam would agree, I think he'll really come into his own over further. He's thoroughly bred for a mile and a quarter plus. I mean, had he run the Derby, you wouldn't be you wouldn't be totally dismissing the idea he could stay a mile and a half.
Yeah.
But he's not an out-and-out miler, is what I'm saying. So I think there is a chance we'll see even more of him in time.
Aidan O'Brien did mention the winning interview afterwards, chatting with Gary O'Brien, that the stamina on the downside suggests that a mile and a quarter will not be a problem. Now, I know that sometimes Aidan tends to speak positively about every horse that he has and he's interviewed, but
Quick enough
there
to
is,
win over 5.
but there's
Enough stamina
substance.
to win a
Champion hurdle.
Yeah. There's substance to the damn side of the pedigree on Paddington that
Yeah.
a mile and a quarter might actually see him in a better light.
As Steve says, the way he's hit the line as
Yeah.
well on
Yeah.
Saturday. It wasn't a frenetic gallop. I think he was well positioned. Keeping the speed figures I keep, it was the best one that he's achieved. But none of his 4 so far have been top. You know, it was about par Saturday. So I think that he got a very effective ride, clever ride. He was in box seat, you know, just tracking high roll. I think that far strip at the Curragh might have been a plus place
Over
to
the
race
weekend,
as well. We'll talk about draw biases perhaps later when we get to Haydock. But you know, there's no disadvantage by being over on that strip at the Curragh anyway. We've seen it before now, and it certainly sort of played out on Sunday as well a little bit. So I think he was well positioned, got a very effective ride. But you've got to love the way that he's thriving and improving, and the way he hit the line.
Yeah, any thoughts on some of the beaten horses? Obviously, Cairo, Stelmont finished second. High Royal, slightly hampered in the closing stages, but not majorly.
Yeah.
He was never going to win, I don't think. Royal Scotsman was disappointing.
He was very disappointed. That was the story of the race. I mean, most of the other horses who ran the Guineas, Trelerin and Galaron, have run well. Royal Scotsman, for whatever, didn't have his day at all. From an early stage, actually, I thought he was fairly obvious he wasn't going to get involved. I think Galaron is a horse that improved with a little bit further. We saw the race out well, and again, I think the pedigree backs that up. I think he's likely to be a 10 furlong horse. Back at what I don't think we've seen a great miler, to be honest with you. I think the 3-year-old milers are. They are what the classics. So far, the classics have been won by, I think, sort of standard classic winners as opposed to exceptional.
Yeah, nothing explosive
No.
particularly.
Yeah.
Obviously, Paddington started his career, you know, or his graduation really at quite lowly level, really for an Aidan O'Brien classic horse. So he's just thrived through the early part of the season. He's had a busy enough start to the season. It'll be interesting to see how he goes as the season wears on, and you know, they look at Sussex Stakes further down the line, and obviously Ascot before then. Like Steve, I thought Galaron ran well. He's the kind of horse you could see going back for a Tatzel's Gold Cup next year over a mile and a quarter. He's won the sales race there, ran well from an uncompromising position on Saturday. And I thought there was a few horses that were just really compromised from where they raced. Royal Scotsman being one. Just he looked laboured, doesn't he, when he came off the bridle a little bit. Proud and Regal was disappointing as well. I expected more from him, but they were all sort of parked out 5, 6, 7 deep, and off a slow gallop as well. A modest early tempo rather. They were never going to be well positioned.
Would it be fair to say I'd be less inclined to treat that literally, the form, not to the same level as the Guineas at Newmarket? I felt that was
I had a very similar standard about. I thought
the two of them.
Yeah, I thought the
Well, High Royal is probably the benchmark, isn't he?
Just how the race was run in Ireland was what the way slowish
But
pace.
Newmarkets wasn't a brilliant speed
No,
figure
and
either.
the way they split up as well. Yeah.
I think they're on a par personally. I mean, I think some horses will improve out of those races, improve to be better than we've already seen. That happens every year.
Yeah.
But I think on just what they've achieved, I think there's not much between them.
I wouldn't be terrified if I owned Tahira
No.
anyway, or trained Tahira.
Absolutely right. I agree.
Beautiful. See how he does
He's done
that.
this before.
Yeah, well, I'm
See how he does that.
working with
Absolutely.
Actually, what he's trying to do is say, move it on.
Yeah.
Move it on.
Yeah.
Irish 1,000 guineas on Sunday. Tahira, runner-up to Morge at Newmarket. I felt really good because of what Sam's already touched on. The rail being handy, and obviously she had a little bit of a pocket behind, and she had to, sort of, against the bias of the way the races were being run on the day, make up ground, and Meditate stuck to it really well.
Yeah,
Impressive to hear.
Meditate was given the perfect ride, the absolute perfect. He had a great weekend ride, didn't he? To be fair,
he
he was
bang on the
absolutely
money, wasn't he?
really was. But I think she's the best miler around. I think she'd beat the Colts in a truly run, proper, orthodox with no bias. I know you're looking for. I think she's the best, and I think she was unlucky in the Guineas. I didn't think enough was made of it. I thought that the way the race panned out, it's not a criticism of the jockey. I thought she was too far back. in a race where they set really sensible, good fractions, but not ludicrous fractions. I thought she's had to make her headway too quickly to get to a challenging position. I think that's why she, and probably lack of a run, just sort of told in the closing stages. I'd be very confident she'd beat Morge if they met again. And they both turned up in good form, you know.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, to be fair to Chris Hayes, he was very self-reflective after the race, wasn't he? I think it took him a while to get over the Newmarket defeat. I wonder if he went into that race with a little bit of not a negative mindset, but there was all this noise coming from the World camp that she was 2 weeks behind, she this, to that. And you could see in his body language during that Newmarket race that he's just trying to cajole her there, and just ease her there and not give her too hard a time. It's a long season. Try and win, use her natural brilliance. She just came up against a race-fit, battle-hardened rival who was very comfortable racing off the front. They became miles clear as well. So
miles clear, I agree.
It's a good run.
On that basis, so she's 6-4 favourite at Bet365 for the Coronation at Royal Ascot. Morge is 2-1. And I'd imagine in the lead-up to the race, the disparity between the two would become far more. And Tahira may well short.
Particularly, I think ground as well. I do think probably what we saw Sunday is as quick a ground as Tahira want to really show herself for perfect. I think if you got proper good ground, or even just on the slow side, I could see it being shorter than 6-4. Personally.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if perhaps Dermot Weld ran another one like he did. And that made the run-in was a bit more aggressively ridden and ensured a strong gallop and also compromised Morge a little bit. And the nice thing about Tahira, you know, she's got that explosive speed to get herself out of a pocket. I thought the interview with Chris Hayes was terrific afterwards. Gary Bryan did a great job with him, but he was just so open about, you know, he'd almost had a few demons really after Newmarket, and you know, to describe himself as a journeyman jockey and say that he really felt the pressure and stuff. You know, he's very, very humble afterwards.
Agreed.
I thought it was terrific.
Right. Anything in behind that? I mentioned one horse that I thought Jackie O. I thought she ran a really creditable race. She's still very lightly raced, only her third start. She made a big move, and then again going back to the way races were being run at the Curragh, she was at the back of the field. She was about 6 wide, widest of the lot. And she made a big move to get into contention at 3, between the 4 and the 3. And then it sort of told in the end, and she ended up getting passed by the 150-1 outsider for a place. But I thought she ran okay. I mean, obviously she's not Tahira's class, but there are decent races for fillies that she could potentially win and step out of that sort of...
Yeah, fair comment. Fair comment.
Ribblesdale?
Well, why not? I mean, she's got the stamina in the baby.
Yeah, Line of Duty in the pedigree, some speed, Secret State, Onassis, who obviously got some Royal Ascot form. That would look the move, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'll throw that name there. Do you want to move on to the Tattersalls Gold Cup?
Yeah, if you like.
How would you describe the result of the race? On merit, best horse in the race, Luxembourg?
Yeah, I thought everything. I thought, again, it was the perfect ride. And I don't think, I've got no criticism for the ride of Rich King Coach. I think it was sort of circumstantial that had to wait a little bit. But I think it's pretty hard to argue on the day that he didn't ultimately have pretty much every chance. I mean, not much between them. I think on the day Luxembourg was the best horse. Whether that'll always be the case, I don't know. But I just thought he was given a picture perfect ride by Ryan.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
He was superb. Like you say, he got the strip over on the far side as well, which might be a marginal advantage. But in these sort of races, the 1%ers count, don't they? Richard Kingscote had to wait for a couple of strides. It's just finding this season that the gaps don't open when he wants them, and that's the banes of a top-class sportsman, isn't it? You nick off or you miss them, and unfortunately, he's just nicking off at the moment and not getting the runs. But it's a long season, a lot can happen yet.
Who knows? Maybe he gets the gaps.
I was really enthusiastic about both of them actually going forward, especially including Baybridge.
Verdany though,
blood in his nostrils apparently. I think there's an issue there. Perhaps.
We know
he's a better horse than that.
I agree. The top two are top class horses, no question.
Yeah, just looking at Aidan suggesting the Prince of Wales's might be next for the winner. Baybridge, I think it's important to keep him fresh. Would that be fair?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
There was a bit of an issue with that last summer, wasn't there? He went back to the well a bit too quick.
Maybe they go back to the Eclipse. I don't know.
Again, you wouldn't mind a little bit of rain for him as well.
Yeah.
I think for perfection. If we talk about at that level, everything in your favour. I think sort of a little bit.
Would you nudge him up in trip?
Who, Baybridge?
Or do you think he's a true
I think
strong
he's
10
out
furlong?
and out 10.
I think he's 10.
Luxembourg Arc horse? Sorry.
Yeah, possibly. I was just going to say our erstwhile colleague, Mr. Stanley, felt that,
Bay
Baybridge might be as good over 12.
Okay. It might be.
But the race on Saturday, would put me off going up. Because Sunday, I keep mixing my days up.
Yeah.
Where are we? Monday.
Yeah.
It's a bank
Well,
holiday.
you're 50 now, Rich. You forget the days like the rest of us.
There's no need.
You're doing well to get our names, Rich. That's good.
Not a problem, Simon. The performance in the Telesource Gold Cup of Bravery suggested to me that there's no more than 10 because he came out, he had every chance to go past.
Well.
He travelled strongly, and
got
then
the
he
toe,
put his head down and he tried to peg him back, but the way the race was run, that was it. And he wasn't going past, he wasn't getting any more ground on Luxembourg.
That's why I think on the day it's hard to argue that he was unlucky.
Yeah.
The final 100 yards, I know he's used up some energy to get there, but he's been well held at the end.
Yeah, he's been held, isn't he?
Okay. Move on and talk about some action domestically.
Yeah.
But Haydock, a couple of big sprints. Let's start with dramatised in the Temple. The perfect toe through the race, 7-1 with Bet365 for the King's Stand at Royal Ascot. I'm impressed.
You can't. I don't. You can't seriously talk about them without making the. It's not a criticism, but Haydock was. It was unsatisfactory. Friday and Saturday. I mean, you were in the studio covering Haydock on a Friday, and unless you were drawn, or unless you raced significantly, pretty close to the rail, you'd have to be de jure to have won. I mean, I think it was a huge advantage. There was at least 4 races of the sprints in handicaps and thing where the 4 horses who were closest to the rail actually finished first, second, third, and fourth in an order. Yeah. So I think when we're covering these races, you can only talk about like the one horse who Dramatist beat, or we're going to talk about the O'Brien horse as well. I think Dramatist has proved that it's trained on. Whether he's actually improved on his 2-year-old form, I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit. It was a good effort, but he did have the perfect toe through. William Buick had him in the right place.
The thing about that race, the Sandyland, and a lot of the races on the course, kind of knew the result of the race a long way out. You could see that she was travelling well, but also that the race had developed on, as they had done over the couple of days, on the stand side, and if you weren't in that particular area, you're in trouble.
Well, just looking at it, stall 10 beat 13, beat 14, beat 11.
Yeah.
Plaudits to Mick Barr, drawn in 3, and Happy Romance drawn in 2. They did really well to even get into the first half a dozen. I think Carl Burke's on record saying she's calmed down a lot, dramatised. I think she was a bit of an enthusiastic, exuberant type last year, as we all saw, but I think she's much more mature. I think the trip to America probably brought her forward mentally. So I think, she'll cope with Ascot fine, and she goes there with a leading chance, I would say.
All right. Little Big Bear, similarly, raced against the stand-side rail. Again, similarly to Dramatise, you could have looked at Frankie Dettori after about 2 or 3 furlongs and felt he's in control of this race already.
I'm slightly disappointed with him.
Really?
I think the 6-4 that's been quoted by Aluso is a joke, basically. Unless you think that Richard Hannon runner should be 7-2 in the race. For a lot of the race, I thought a little bit best looked like it was right back to his 2-year-old form. Race 124 as a 2-year-old, very high rating. The perfect trip, had all the way through, always in the right position. Absolutely perfect. The horse who chased him home is a really reliable, very consistent horse of Richard Hannon's. Should have bought a ring. Should have been a ring. And unless you feel that's improved significantly, and it's pretty hard to argue a horse who's so consistent would suddenly find £7 or £10. That horse is rated 102 going into it. Now, and if you'd stopped the race half a furlong out, I thought the winner was going to be valued 3 or 4 lengths and win away. I actually don't think. He wasn't never in danger, but I don't think he's hacked up. I think that at the end he's simply, he's been kept up to his work by Frankie. So I think he's probably run to a mark more than a stone below his 2-year-old form, and he's priced up for the race at Royal Ascot like he's 124 horse at the moment. I think he's proved he's about 108 horse.
Right, he's 13-8 favourite for the Commonwealth Cup with Bet365. Sakir is 6-1. Yeah. And this is the point about the race. I totally get what you're saying, and I agree with it. I don't think he has produced a performance that certainly matched what he did in the Phoenix at the end of
not
last
within a stone, Rich. That's the
point.
No.
But I'm looking for the opposition, and I'm just trying to find a reason of why he's so short. I mean, I still think he's too short anyway, like you. But I'm just looking around. Sakir 6-1. Where's he at the moment? Shaquille is 8-1. That was good at Newbury.
Yeah.
Lazoo 10s, Marshman 10s. He got beaten, but I thought he ran all right at York.
Yeah.
The Antarctic 10s, Noble Star 12s, Ocean Quest 14s, Aldacin 20s.
Personally, I'd rather either of the two horses who ran the Guineas because of the price. I mean, Noble Star was disappointed next time out, but I'd rather have the Varian horse or
Sakir.
or Noble Star. I think they put up. I think their performance in the Guineas was a superior performance to what we saw on Saturday by a reasonable margin, and I think both of them promised to be better as sprinters.
Yeah.
They ran their form at a mile a trip, which didn't suit in the race, of course, where he was tailed off. I just think that. I understand you buy into Aidan O'Brien, who's a fantastic trainer.
Smarter than the average bear, isn't it?
Absolutely. But it's the 6-4 that gets me. I'm not saying he can't win. He might come back to his 2-year-old form, but you're half taking a short price, I think.
Where do you stand
Yeah,
on
I
this?
mean, I put up Bradsill in the race, and he tanked along, didn't he? For
He
three
didn't
quarters.
finish the race off,
But
did
he's,
he?
again,
Twice
you know,
now,
that's
isn't it,
twice
hasn't
now.
he?
So
Yeah.
he's obviously recoiling at the moment when
Yeah.
maximum pressures
Yeah.
exerted. Cole Case has obviously bounced off the back of a big effort at Ascot. I agree with Steve. I think the race is it looks pants really. You know, that's not to denigrate Little Big Bear and what he managed to do, but he, like Steve said, a perfect trip. The horse that ran so well in the Guineas, the 1,000 Guineas, is drawn in one down the middle of the track as well,
No
which is
chance.
a negative.
Matilda Picard,
Yeah, Matilda Picard. So, and the others were at sort of 18 and 100 to 1 chances. So, what is he actually? He's beaten. You know, he's beaten. Sadly, a horse in Bradsill that doesn't look to be able to reignite the glory days of his 2-year-old career, and a really solid, very likeable horse. And should have
Very
been.
likeable, absolutely.
In mitigation, and I'm only playing devil's advocate, is it not quite a smart effort from the team, the lads, and the horse itself to go from a messy line through the run race in the Guineas and come back a few weeks later and do that? I know it's not on go through
definitely.
the
I mean,
factory,
he's a great
and it's possible
trainer.
he could go forward again.
Absolutely, it's a huge step in the right direction. Absolutely, and I'm not trying to sort of say the horse isn't any good. I'm saying what we saw on Saturday
Is not good enough.
Everything, well, by a long way, he's not good enough for Rishi, and it's been priced up as though he's back. Well, he's back to being a length and a quarter, value a bit more, from a very reliable 102 rated rival who also had the perfect trip, agreed.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can judge the other horses because they weren't in the right part of the track. Those two were, and I think we know enough about the second to think that a genuine Group 1 horse is going to beat the Richard Hammond horse comfortably.
Yes.
And I really like the second. He's a lovely.
Yeah,
you know,
me too.
But I just think that's all my argument
Yeah.
is the price of Rich, not about
Fair enough.
that he hasn't achieved anything.
Yeah.
And to endorse your view, I do agree. People think dropping back from a mile to a 6, it's an absolute penalty kick that these horses, because they've got so much latent ability, they're just going to go and win. So it does take a good bit of ability at home and some finesse to. We saw with Noble Star, didn't we, at Newbury? It doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
He might still be a work in progress over 6, but as we go forward against proper Group 1 horses.
Well, I know a lot of people were disappointed by Noble Star. Actually, I quite enjoyed the fact that what they did get him to do was to drop back in trip and settle at the back of the field. Now, I know they probably settled a little too far back and he didn't perhaps pick up in quite the way that they wanted to. But having run in the Guineas, the last thing you want to do is then drop them back and fire them up. You need them to also relax. Otherwise, you're going to ruin the horse for the future as well. So I enjoyed Noble Star dropping back, and he would still be a player because he looked like a real top class sprinter potentially.
Well, we mentioned last week's pod, didn't we? We referenced Francesco Camani's paddock observation that he was a bit woolly in his coat and he hadn't quite come to himself yet. So
it's a double figure price, 12s.
There you go.
The Derby winner from last year, Desert Crown, was back in action in the Brigadier on
Did you go
Thursday.
Did you go
No.
Thursday?
Watched it all. No, I didn't. I wasn't there.
But Hookham was impressive.
Well, we talked about this privately, haven't we?
Yeah, what was your reading of it?
On the day, I thought that they both run great races. I think they're two very good horses, first of all. I think Hookham's Coronation win was probably underrated. He was very impressive last year when he won. Yes. And I think he is a top-class horse. I thought on the day the best horse won. Now, whether that will always be the case, whether it transpired that the runner-up may have slightly needed it more. They're both coming from long absences. Maybe hit the front a little bit earlier than ideal. They're all little things. I can argue it from Desert Crown's point of view and say, look, it's a perfectly good starting point.
Yeah.
But on the day, I thought Hockham overcome a little bit of trouble in running and was a value, fully merited winner.
I thought it was really interesting to hear the comments afterwards from Jim Crowley, who said that he's got stronger and quicker in his work at home, even at the age of 6, and maybe the time off has worked in his favour a little bit.
Yeah, possibly.
But he certainly did well to win, I thought, from the position that he was in, and he was compromised a little bit by the draw, even in a small field. Jim had to take his medicine to a point, but again, prove what a class rider he is, doesn't he?
Indeed.
Also, he's a class trainer, don't you think? Because what he's done with that horse, who was basically a 1 mile 6 horse 2 years ago. Yeah. Really. Stamina appeared to be his strong, but now he was good enough to win, a top race over a mile and a quarter with speed.
And don't forget, there was plenty looking to call out Owenburrows 2 or 3 years ago.
Absolutely.
You get all these Shadwell horses, what's he doing with them? And there was a few people, some snide remarks in his direction. But
he's done pretty well.
The last 2 or 3 years, despite adversity as well. Obviously having his numbers trimmed significantly,
very much so.
Injuries to major players. How well he's managed to keep the show on the road.
By the time this podcast goes out, he might well have won the Isfahan as well with Anmart.
Yeah, possibly.
Jim Crowley rates very highly for the season ahead. Art Power, the Curragh in Ireland is almost a certainty, isn't it? But first ever win in Ireland at the Curragh for Oisin Murphy.
Was he really? I didn't know that.
Random
I didn't know that.
Didn't know until he crossed the line.
Yeah, he was good. I mean, on the day, he was all the things that we associate Art Power with.
Yeah, because you liked him earlier in the season, didn't you?
And there was another first as well, wasn't there, for Oisin the other day? I can't remember. Riding first that he managed to achieve that he hadn't done before. So, looks very focused, doesn't it, at the moment? And I think there's been 2 or 3 brilliant rides, I think, from the top lads. Buick's been superb, I think, in the early part of the season. Ryan Moore, obviously, and Oisin Murphy. They are riding to an incredibly high standard at the moment.
Yeah, Art Power's 10-1, Bet365 for the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee. Courage Mon Ami won at Goodwood, and he's been inserted at 16-1, Bet365 for the Gold Cup.
Really big fan of the horse, love the horse. And I thought he was really good on Saturday. I have him down in my mind as a sort of an Ebor horse, to be fair. I don't see that. They probably will go. Who knows whether he's wants 2.5 miles. I think it was a steadily-ish run race at Goodwood on Saturday. And I think it's palpable that he wants a more of a test. I think a strongly run 1 3/4 on a more galloping track. And I thought he was still green instantly. I thought a couple of times he sort of came off the bridle, but I thought he won. He was 98 going into that. He's clearly a much better horse than that. I think he's a pattern class horse, but in my mind, I'd have the Ebor, which is worth a fortune. And he will now definitely get in.
Yes.
That where I would, rather than the Gold Cup, which I don't know, it's just a different sort of test. What do you think?
You'd be targeting York before you targeted a Gold Cup, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
Prize money on offer.
I would. Yeah, I would.
If you've got a perfect candidate like that.
Yeah. Was there anything else over the last week or so? I mean, there was a lot of good racing, as always. I was disappointed that Francesco Clement got beaten in the opening race at Goodwood.
Funny race, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it was a funny race. He clearly, for whatever reason, Goodwood didn't suit him. Obviously, you saw him blow the turn coming in, and then it took a while to get him organised. Because I think he could be quite a useful horse. So that's why I was disappointed. But I still saw enough, I thought, in the performance to feel that there's a very good horse still waiting to emerge this season.
He's going back 8 days too long. I thought the 2-year-old won at Ripon, the George Barry 2-year-old.
We did talk about it a lot.
Johnny come lately, but that was something else. Wasn't
I mean, the fact that you even mentioned it now is still because it was so good.
So good.
What about the 2-year-old Carl Burks that won the National Stakes, elite status?
Yeah, really
elite
good.
Status,
really good. I agree.
And he thinks that might be his best. Yes, is that right?
Yeah. Does he go Norfolk? Is it?
Yeah, it is, and you can sort of ride a race on him. Like he's not one of 5 he's not a shoot and go 5 furlong horse, is he? He sort of half rode a race. It was Clifford Lee, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought, that was very impressive. Very
He's
impressive.
got some right ammunition.
Hasn't
Carl
he
Burke,
just?
both in the 3-year-old sort of sprinting division.
Absolutely.
2-year-olds, you would expect first and second in the Marygate, didn't he? And then first and second in the National Stakes as well.
Yeah.
I think he thinks the second's quite useful as well.
Actually. Well, I mean, last year he said that the 2-year-olds that he had were the best crop of 2-year-olds he'd ever had, and in fairness, they were pretty good.
Yeah.
The likes of Marshman and Cold Case, etc., and Novakai. but I think he thinks this one's better than
This,
last year.
this year, he said, to Marcus Townend, my colleague at the Mail,
Yeah.
he thinks this group are even better.
Well, it's hard to argue at the moment. To be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Resurgence of that yard's been quite astonishing, really,
Terrific.
hasn't it, the last
Yeah.
decade or so.
Yeah.
no more on last week. All done.
Look forward, Rish. Got to
Yeah.
look forward in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
That's what
You know.
life's all about.
Absolutely. Blinkers.
Yeah. The last
Blinkers.
50 years don't
Never
count,
needed
mate.
it.
If the
No.
last 50 years don't count, it's what you do now.
Absolutely.
Correct. That has been this week's racing recap. Now, before we get into our Epsom Derby preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have an ITV Racing price promise. They'll not be beaten on price on any horse for all UK and Irish races shown live on ITV Racing. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. And so to Epsom, and first of all, the Derby. It's a race that we've already talked about, and we know so many of us hold it in such high esteem. How highly do you hold the quality of the field lining up, or set to line up, for the race this year, Steve?
I think it's really competitive. I don't think any horse has gone into it established himself as a champion yet. But you just said the same last year, wouldn't you? And people were raving about the winner after. I mean, they haven't had the chance to run over a mile and a half, most of these horses. So who knows? There aren't many horses missing, I didn't think, that you would like to be running. I'm sure there are some, but I think it's a pretty representative field. We'd like to have a significant number of runners. We should get a decent pace. I'm really, really looking forward to it. But I mean, it's a difficult race, but I think I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, start me off with the horse that you think is the most likely winner of them all.
Likely winner, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to back it.
No,
try.
the horse that you would say is the most likely winner.
I think the two at the head of the market probably are the most likely winners. I think it's really a 6-1 the field race. So I'm not excited by them. I think Military Order did it really well at Lingfield. Don't think it was massively strong form, but did it really well. Brother of a Derby winner. We know he's going to get the trip. We know he's going to get a really good ride. We know he's going to act at Epsom, I think so. If you act at Lingfield like he does, he must run pretty well. But I don't think what he achieved was a Derby winning performance. And August Rodin's 2-year-old form is probably the best form on offer, just about, probably. And given, Brian can produce horses who run badly in Guinea, we saw it with Mediate and Little Brown Bear, so maybe it'll come back to his best and he'll probably stay. They don't excite me at the prices, but if you're looking most likely, I suspect one of those will be the most likely, but they wouldn't be who I backed.
Yeah, I agree with Steve a lot. Yeah, trying to put up something at 7-2 to win the Derby we're on a Monday afternoon, it doesn't sound very exciting, does it? We haven't got to the Oaks yet, so.
Yeah.
But I really like Military Order. I mean, look, he ticked the box. He's a 12-furlong horse. He's well bred, great pedigree. He's the only runner from Godolphin in the race as well, so they've obviously concentrated all their strengths and positives on his chance. I liked his performance at Lingfield. I think if it had won on turf and not on your weather, I think he'd almost be 5-2 for this rather than 7-2, 4-1. The sectional time as well was good. It bear close resemblance or close comparison, with Sacred, who won on the card over 7.
Yeah.
She was about 4 lengths quicker, but given that he's gone a mile and a half and raced around the inside, I thought that was a really good effort. So he's just about top of my list at the moment. There's one or two interesting ones at big prices I like if they run, but out of the two of them, I find it so hard to evaluate Auguste Rodin and what he can and can't do, and you do know that, as you've seen with the likes of Luxembourg and all these other horses, that, all right, they might miss out a little bit as 3-year-olds or whatever, but come 4-year-olds, they do live up to the hype and they live up to the pedigree and the comments that his trainer might be uttering about them. So,
I must admit, I'm not a fan of Auguste Rodin, certainly at the prices anyway. I mean, I cannot see. I mean, I know you were saying that the 2-year-old form, but I felt in the Doncaster race, Holloway Boy might have been a bigger danger to him had he not run all the way across the track, and he was in trouble. Now, the counterpoint to that is the fact that he outstayed them at the end, and stamina seems to be the strong suit. But being in trouble against Holloway Boy and Epictetus doesn't really appeal
No,
to me as
no,
Derby
no.
winning form.
No.
And then you've got this bad run in the Guineas to put behind you. Admittedly, there have been excuses, and it is Aidan O'Brien, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not
I'm
convinced.
with you. I guess it was a Group 1, and I think most of the other horses we're talking about are potential Group 1 performances. I'm only saying on terms of pure form, maybe it's got... I agree with you. It doesn't excite me at the price either. I think it's...
An Arrest and Dubai Mile. We'll put them together because obviously they ran against each other. Dubai Mile beat Arrest in
I'd be worried
France.
if there was no rain, I'd be worried by Arrest. I think there was a doubt.
I was going to ask you about this. Given what's going to happen this week, we're going to get some protesters of some description.
For sure.
There's going to be a lot of pressure on Andrew Cooper, I think, to produce very, very safe ground, isn't there? And yeah, I think the ground on Friday might be a little bit easier than the ground on Saturday.
Agreed.
But I still think there's no way it's going to be rattling quick round there, is there?
No.
And he produces a beautiful car. I mean, we've been lucky enough to go and stand on that track and broadcast, haven't we? And before racing starts.
It stopped after Pennycamp, didn't it? I think Pennycamp broke down, I
Yes.
think. And they virtually, I don't know if it's ever actually been officially decided, but they've gone out of their way to make sure the ground's no worse than good since then.
So I think that would arrest any
Good word.
any qualms I might have in Arrest finding the ground too quick, but whether the track suits him quite as well, because he does hit the ground hard, doesn't he?
He does.
Of the two, I personally would slightly prefer Dubai
Dubai
Mile.
Mile. I mean, he's, what, is he 14 to 1 with that?
Yeah, he's not been given a chance at a mile and a half yet. Breeding doesn't actually necessarily scream it, but run style definitely does. I mean, one over a mile and a quarter in desperate conditions.
Beating
Arrest. There wasn't much between them. I don't think there is much between them, but I think Dubai Mile, for a mile, what I think is a mile and a half horse, ran pretty well in the Guineas.
Yeah.
It wasn't a generous, it wasn't a fourth, knocking your eye out, staying on, but I thought it was a solid run for a horse who palpably isn't quick enough for
Trainers
a mile.
who've won the Derby in their first year of training?
Yeah.
Good one.
How many? Do you
Saïd
know?
bin Saror,
Haggers?
Was that his first year, was it?
Was it?
No.
96, Charmet.
No.
No, he had World Cup winner before then, I
Yeah,
think.
no. Saïd trained Lamtara.
Lamtara.
Yeah.
That is the only one, though.
No,
I don't know, to be honest. Don't know. Genuinely don't know.
Good question.
Very good question.
Can't
No.
think of any others.
Got a chance in the Oaks as well, hasn't he, Charlie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Dante form. The Foxes beats White Birch, Passenger. Still, has he been supplemented, Passenger? We haven't had
We haven't
confirmation
seen it,
yet,
but
have
the
we?
intention
But
yesterday
that
on the
was
wires
that he
was
was
that he
going
was
to be
going to.
supplemented. But
I know you're a Passenger fan, because we had the... Should it be...
from the race, yes.
And the trainer, which is fair
Oh,
enough.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But should it be
Definitely
half the
built
price
into it.
of the Foxes?
No. I mean, he's what is he, 6 to 1 now for the Derby?
Yeah.
Which is too short. He was 12s immediately after the race, 10s, and obviously 8s, then down to
It
6.
gets factored in, doesn't it?
And would
But
it
it does
definitely
get
stay?
Well, I was hoping that my breeding expert would tell me.
I think
Not
there's doubt.
convinced.
You must have delved into the pedigree.
I have delved into pedigree. It's not an out and out.
The Foxes is
Middle
more
distance.
like on paper.
On paper,
would
Foxes
be-
have got more
certain
stamina in the
yeah.
pedigree on that dam side. I would say Passenger is a bit like Desert Crown in this style, in the way he raced.
Travelling.
I thought Desert Crown's a 10 furlong horse myself as well. And I think Passenger is similar in that respect. But also, he's only having the third start of his career.
It's unstout-like, isn't it?
That's my biggest point. That normally,
Yeah, that's true.
I cannot. Going back through the years, I can't really find a horse which made his debut 3-year-old in April that Sir Michael Stout has fired into the Derby.
Yeah, that's perfectly valid, absolutely.
I don't know of any because it's not his. You know his MO. If they're if it's a 3-year-old making their debut, it's possible they might go for someone like the King Edward at Royal Ascot. He might do that, but to go first run ever at Newmarket, Wood Ditton, classic trial Derby, very unusual.
Yeah, but he must see something in that horse that thinks that his constitution is up to it. He's mentally very sound.
And I would say more so that theory of thinking as opposed to taking advantage of an open race. I don't think he would. I think he would go more the horse than the race.
Yeah.
Plus, we shouldn't underestimate. Is there any pressure from owners?
I would say unlikely.
Right.
I would say it's more a case of if
He feels
they
it's
would
the
say,
right thing to do.
I mean, given the fact that he's trained for them for such a long time,
Yeah.
and it is Sir Michael Stout, you kind of think, you tell us what we should be doing. You would
Yeah.
think, but who knows? That's all behind closed doors.
Fair comment. What do you think of the Foxes as a horse? What's your general view on him?
I think he's a very good horse. Obviously, he's a very talented horse, but is he a Derby winner? I don't see the Foxes as a Derby winner. I think he won. The Dante was a great result for him because it all panned out perfectly for him. It was a very good ride, I thought, from Machine Murphy.
It was.
The way
Brilliant. He was superb.
he managed his position in the race, and I thought he won the Dante
Yeah, he made the difference,
because of the
didn't he?
circumstances.
Yeah.
Was he the best horse in the race? Would he be the best horse ever a mile and a half, even looking at the way White Birch finished the race?
No,
for example?
absolutely.
That's another horse
Absolutely.
throw. So I wouldn't be convinced that that result would be repeated
No.
again and again and again.
No, I agree. White Birch, in a sense, has come from much further back. Possibly, and again, York has been a bit odd this year. Possibly the fact that he was racing nearer the stand rail with a slight advantage for the White Birch. I mean, it happened in a lot of races this year. It appears
Well,
to
certainly
be.
seen the weekend as well.
Was it
That
again?
certainly backed it up. Didn't
So
it?
I've got a real feeling. I can't be strong about which of the horses there will come out best. That's how I feel. Well, I mean, just the Dante form, if you know what I mean. And it's only, again, you may well be right with Passenger. I take all your points. It's just I don't think he's been missed in terms of prices. That's all.
No, and the time was above par, but it wasn't like astonishing. And 5 of them finished within a couple of legs of
Absolutely.
each other, and the 6th been beaten in a handicap at Haydock on
Yeah.
Saturday,
Yeah.
Keelybegs Warrior.
Yeah.
Sam, you like a romantic story.
Oh,
go on.
If Sprayerwell won for
Yeah.
Jesse Harrington, it would certainly tug at the heartstrings.
Yeah.
The horse has got what sort of chance?
Liked his performance at Leopardstown. A couple of horses have come out of the race and been beaten since. You'd like to see a bit of a positive for the form. I like any 2-year-old or any young horse that's managed to win at Naas or Navan a couple of times. Is he ground dependent?
Again,
Be a
the
little bit
question.
of a concern.
Yeah.
Yet again, I haven't had a good look at the pedigree, which I should have done, but no doubt you have.
Not as close as I had a look at Passengers.
No, obviously. And if Spraywell was trained by Sir Michael Stout, you'd know every inch of the pedigree. Churchill.
In fairness, Churchill is absolutely flying at the moment.
Yeah.
You know.
He is.
He himself was bred to stay further than he ran over Churchill.
never
It's
did.
not of that surprise that a lot of his horses are staying, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, he's got mile and a half winners and mile 6 winners
has.
in the pedigree.
Has.
So I think he'll get the trip fine. Yeah, couldn't rule him out.
All right.
You just don't know where his arc's
So
going to finish.
let's go. Steve Mellish's Derby winner is. You
Who-
said,
if I had a bet,
yeah.
you know,
Who are you going to back?
if I had a bet, and I'm not sure I will, I'd back Dubai Mile each way.
Dubai Mile each way. Okay, Sam.
If you gave me a tenner-ish,
Unlikely.
Very
very
unlikely.
unlikely. I'll settle for
20,
a fiver off
obviously.
you. Military Order is my number one pick in the race, and if I had to have an outsider,
With your own money.
Goolagong, if he runs.
Goolagong. Okay.
Really take with him.
Change his
Navan.
name to Cooley before the
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Showing. Yeah. I just really liked the Navan performance. The time was good considering he made the run in.
Yeah.
Time was good. They've stretched clear. The second or third have won since. He hasn't gone to a trial, which I can't quite understand. But he's like 40 to 1, 33 to 1, 40 to 1.
Yeah.
If he runs and gets a fair draw, I'll be having a couple of shillings each way on him.
Tremendous. Okay.
And
I like.
Who's second to Passenger for you?
No, obviously I like Passenger.
course you
Obviously I like Passenger, but I can't. I mean, he's.
Would he have won the Dante with a clear run?
I think he would have gone very close to winning the Dante. There's no such thing as a guarantee, but I can't imagine he would have been very far away from winning the Dante with a clear
What
run.
do you feel?
I actually think he was a little bit harsh because one or two people have said, well, he didn't exactly pick up and fly through the line.
Yeah.
But like we're talking 10, 12 furlong or 10 or 11 furlong
Yeah.
horses,
So
aren't
there wasn't
we?
that much time for him to get into
No,
it.
no.
You know.
No, and the Foxes is a good quality horse in his own right and is quickening and lengthening himself. So you're not just going to shoot past these horses.
No,
they're
agreed.
fair yardstick.
Agreed. Yeah.
Boring it is, but Military Order I think has put up the best trial.
It is boring,
Okay.
isn't it? It really
For
is
the race.
boring, I know, but the time figure was such and the sectionals backed it up and the fact that his pedigree, everything,
Yeah.
Buick's riding well, there's not a lot not to like about
No.
his chance, really.
Okay, so we've not sorted the Derby, then we'll move on to
And the first 5 in his maiden, when he was 4th, have all won
Oh,
as
right.
well. So it was a strong maiden that he came out of. So there we go.
Excellent, yes.
He
To
wins-
the Oaks.
He wins by 5 lengths from Dubai Mile, doesn't he? To the Oaks.
And best of luck to Frankie. And your last
Best of
Derby.
luck to Frankie.
To the Oaks, Save the Last Dance, 11-10 favourite. Soul Sister, 11-4. Running Line, these are all obviously with Bet365. Running Line, 13-2. Eternal Hope, who connections have said they want to run in the race now. She's 10-1 after she won at Lingfield. Save the Last Dance, Steve. Are we to A, believe
Is that a request?
the Chester performance, and B, do you think she'll win?
Yes and yes.
End of story then. It's that simple.
Right, let's go home.
By a margin.
By a margin.
I think she's a really good filly. I think she's a genuine 1.5 mile filly as well.
And a good and
I
a
think
better ground filly.
Well, that I don't know, but like Sam says, I'll be amazed on Friday if the ground is any softer than slow good.
But even
That's
if
my
it was,
guess.
Yeah,
the
me
pedigree says it shouldn't be a
Well,
problem.
that might not be a problem, but we know that the horse goes on soft ground. And again, the time I thought was tremendous at Chester. I thought it was a Group 1 performance at Chester. I know it wasn't a Group 1 field, I accept that. And I think to beat her, I think particularly the two Gosden horses have got to get the 1.5 mile really well. It's a stiff 1.5 mile Epsom. She will relish it. She was so strong after the line at Chester, having done tremendous time. She took about 3 furlongs to pull up.
Yeah.
I think she might be the most exciting. I'd back her if she won the Derby. For sure, I would.
It's not the most ridiculous suggestion that she should have run in the Derby.
No.
But
But you'd understand why they've gone down this path.
so 11-10. We're
She
lumping
nearly
on.
went round again, didn't she, in the Cheshire Oaks?
She really did.
Yeah.
Thought
Yeah,
Ryan loved her as well. I know he doesn't give much away, but I
No.
thought he absolutely loved her.
Yeah, you could just see, couldn't you? There
Yeah.
was an enthusiasm for a performance. And it was difficult to evaluate times a little bit that week, wasn't it, with the rain that we had? It made it tough. But yeah, the speed figure I got was just astonishing, and the sections backed it up as well as the other races on the card, as Steve's alluded to. She gets a tick from me as well. Aidan's got 6 in the race as we speak. I can't believe that he won't ensure this is a proper gallop.
Yeah.
That said, I thought what Soul Sister managed to do in the Musidora was astonishing, really, to come off those slow fractions and quicken like she did and do just over 33 for the last 3 furlongs. Shows you what a top class horse she is. But is she going to be able to do it 1.5 miles with a brutal tempo? And I'd be very surprised if the O'Brien camp let this be a dawdle round Epsom.
Running Line, surprised that she's even running the race. They were talking about going for the French shows because they weren't sure that she'd definitely see out.
Second didn't do much of the form, admittedly well below form.
Yeah.
I don't think the same.
And also she
feeling
bolted
about
up as well, Running Line.
As she did.
Yeah.
If she stays, she I'd be surprised if she stayed, to be honest. If she does, she's clearly a very fast filly, and it's got the potential to be a really good Oaks. To be honest, you've got both the Gosden runners are fully worth running in the race.
Yeah.
They were impressive in their trials. Actually, York thing, you do get really impressive winners at York. I can't put my finger on it.
Some horses act and some don't.
I don't know what it is, but you're more prone to get a horse go and win like she did there than, I don't know, Newbury. It strikes me. I don't. That's. I've got.
Actually, people who are looking at the Chester form of Save the Last Dance might suggest.
They might well do. Absolutely. You're, and they'd be fair. So
but she was down the near side strip again, wasn't she? Soul Sister.
She was in the end. I think she would have won wherever. But you're right. She was tremendous. She was really, really good. But just feel that the favourite might be a very, very good filly.
Yeah. Best outsiders.
I know she's not an outsider. I think the Appleby filly, Eternal, I think she's really good.
Yeah.
I like the way she won at Lingfield. There was a horse that was travelling really well in behind her. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head now. But
Was it the O'Brien horse?
Might have been. And she was going quite well. And then when she quickened up, the other horse quickened up but could never make up any ground. And they were both going away from the rest of the field. And I liked visually the performance. And again, looking through that pedigree, that looks like a 1.5 mile. It's right up her street, so I think she's the biggest danger to Save the Last Dance, more so than the Gosden fillies.
Might well be 1 or 2 enhanced places on offer, 4 places in this race. Is there anything you could see sneaking in?
How many runners do you think you'll get in the Oaks?
It depends how many Aidan runs, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I would imagine some of the outliers, the Bright Diamonds, Carnarvon, Heartache Tonight. Jackie O won't run, I wouldn't think. Richard Hannons is jocked up with Kevin Stock, Maman June. So
my
double figures, will it?
Maman Joan will be my outside. Not that I can't understand why it hasn't run between Newbury and here. And to be fair, it was announced after Newbury that they were going to go straight to the Oaks and not run. I thought she travelled. The form is nothing, but I thought she travelled like a really good horse.
The time was brilliant, wasn't it? But obviously, Gather Ye Rosebuds didn't do a lot for it. But
that's got to be a mudlark, hasn't it? The way that's run, don't you think?
Yeah. And a maiden going into lofty stakes races, difficult. I put up Dance in the Grass. Now there's every chance that she might be about 30 lengths behind coming down Tottenham Corner, as she was in the Guineas. But I mean, she's related to Night Salute, and she looked like a 3-mile chaser in the Guineas, didn't she? She was that far behind. But crikey, how did she manage to finish 5th?
Yeah, that's true.
10 or 11 lengths.
Yeah,
you know, if you get 4 places, 33s, she'd be sharper for that. And I thought what she managed to do in the Guineas was pretty incredible, really.
All right, so we're going to just confirm. Save the Last Dance, we'll agree she's the one to beat. Maman June is an alternative. Dance in the Grass is an alternative. And Eternal Hope to run behind.
Okay.
Save the Last Dance.
I managed to tip both favourites in the 2 classics this weekend. I'm proud of myself.
Well, you should be.
Yeah.
You should be. Your record is exemplary.
That's what 16 years on the Daily Mail does to you.
Should we just put up Westover for you in the Coronation Cup and don't ask you any more questions? I mean, although he's only just shading favouritism at the moment at 2-1. Emily Upjohn 9-4. Hurricane Lane 130. Point Lonsdale 7-2. Tons 16-1. Broome 20s. Steve, Westover.
Hope they'll run first of all.
Yeah,
that's a good race.
Good race.
Yeah, it is.
But had Westover been born 50 years ago, or before that, Westover would have been a classic horse who would have gone on to run the Ledger and been a fantastic stayer. I think a mile and a half is his minimum. I really like the horse. I'm really fond of him because I think he spent his whole career bashing his head against what he doesn't really want, if you know what I mean. I think this is an opportunity for another Group 1 for him, because Epsom is a stiff mile and a half. If you get a decent pace, I would favour. I thought he ran well in Dubai.
Very well.
I didn't expect him to run as well as that. I thought he ran well. I think this is. I think the Beckett Yard's in very good form. Lots of things are in favour. I just wish it was another extra furlong and a half. I think he's a 1 mile 6 horse who'll never get the chance to run over it.
Do you think the reason they don't want to go over those extended trips is because he can be keen, as we saw?
I think it's to do with breeding entirely. I mean, from way back now, horses don't want to be
pigeonholed.
They just don't.
No.
So I think they want. They've won an Irish Derby. I mean, they've won a fantastic race, whatever. But I think I'm sure if you had a chat with Rafe and you were talking off the record, I'm sure he'd say Liverpool would be a terrific horse.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant race. I couldn't really come down and side with anything. The one also I thought might run well at an enormous price was Royal Champion, just because he was 50 or 66.
Ground.
If you get the 3 places, got good form round there, admittedly in the handicap, and he has got lows to find. I get that, but I think the ground is the key to him.
He needs quick ground.
Yeah. I think the ground is the key to him. But he just looked a big price, because I'm not sure how many are going to run. So at this stage of the week, if you could still get 3 places, that might just be a little bit of a fun bet for you. But Hurricane Lane was probably the one I was going to
about to ask about. I thought he might be one of the most interesting horses in the race, because not particularly keen on having a bet in the race myself, but he's an interesting horse considering the fact that everything was geared up to keeping him training last year for the Arc. All went to pot. He came back, and I thought after his first run, we'll never see him again. But in fairness, Appleby and the team brought him back, and he won again.
He did.
Whether he can back that up now will be a big question.
In the cheap pieces for the second time.
Yeah. But everyone wanted to lay him last time, didn't they?
They did. Yeah. That's what he went off 2-1.
Yeah, miles ahead on official figures, and he looked a really good horse again. I guess in the back of my mind, I'm not quite sure which Hurricane Lane will turn up, but if the one we saw at Newmarket turns up, he's a huge danger.
And Emily Upjohn?
Yeah, I mean, the hood worked, didn't it? The back end of last year, because she was too free and too keen. And the King George, obviously, like Westover, they'd lost their races after probably 3 or 4 furlongs. She settled a lot better. That race has thrown up good winners, the fillies and mares, Emily Dickinson, Insinuendo, etc.
Yeah.
Loves Epsom, bit unlucky.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at her career profile, it's just one black mark, really, isn't it? The King George. But other than that, she could have won the Oaks, and she looked brilliant when we last saw her. So it looks a fascinating race.
Really?
I couldn't have a bet,
Call the
to be
winner.
honest. Sorry?
I know you could have a bet similar.
I'd jib out. If they bet as they do on the day, I'd probably bet Hurricane Lane each way at 4-1.
I'd Westover for me.
Westover. I'd go with Hurricane Lane.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else racing-wise that you think?
There was just a handicap on the Friday afternoon, the 3:45,
Yeah.
with Chaos Chorister. Now, she's also in this. She's about 100 to 1 in this.
Yes,
but,
in the
but
Coronation Cup. Yeah.
her and Bad Company from that City and Suburban, I think Bet365 are sort of 6 or 7 to 1 Chaos Chorister and 14 to 1 Bad Company. I thought those two were fair each way plays. I can't see Bad Company not running because it's Jim Boyle.
Desperate to run well at Epsom, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And looks as though it's been trained for the race as well. So Jim likes to have runners this weekend.
Yeah.
And for Chaos Chorister, I think she's only been beaten once at Epsom by Bad Company. If Benoit de la Sayette rides her as well, I think she's won 4 and finished second in the City and Suburban the other time that he's ridden her. So I thought those two were interesting plays against Mahaba the champ, who it's York form, going to Epsom 2 weeks later. I don't know. Not bonkers on that line.
Any thoughts on anything else, Steve, or are you happy with...
At Epsom we're talking? Or?
Anything that's running over the next week?
Look, I was watching Embesto run at Doncaster. Thought he looked a really good horse at Yarmouth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought that... I'm not really into backing 2 races. I thought Hutton has got a very good chance in the opening race at Epsom. I thought she was an absolute eye-catcher at Goodwood, and I thought he really franked it by bolting up at Bath.
Yes.
So I think that'll run well. But
okay.
How they'll be, I don't know.
All right, so that's a look
You?
at... no, nothing really. I'll be entirely honest. I'm saving my powder for when we know definitely what's running at Epsom
fair
on
comment.
Friday and Saturday. It's been a battle the last couple of weeks.
Well, that maximum bet getting beaten up at York, was it?
All right,
York.
keep bringing
Who was
that
that? Who was the maximum bet?
He was all over ITV, wasn't he? Oh, maximum bet this, the Prasad pounds are going in.
Go on, who was that? Who was the horse?
Which one was it?
It's a little bit of
Go
entertainment.
on, who was the horse?
I saw Broom in the paddock before the...
Which one?
Broom.
Oh, right.
Not a broom.
Yeah.
Triggers Broom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, in the Yorkshire Cup.
Yeah, in the Yorkshire Cup.
Okay.
And I just thought he was an absolute certainty based on the run in Dubai and this.
Well, you might see him Friday, mightn't you?
Yeah.
I'll have a word with him. Yeah, I don't think it'd be a certainty.
I think we saw a Gold Cup winner that day, don't you?
Do you?
Yeah. I think their Varian horse has got great.
Elderov, yeah.
I thought that was a fantastic Gold Cup trial.
Yeah, it was. It was. He's a little horse though. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
Really?
Really?
Well,
Is it Brian Lara
all the
was
chat, all the
tiny?
chat about him coming on for the race.
Yeah, but
I can't
Brian
imagine
Lara was
him doing-
tiny.
Tiny. All the best ones were.
Yeah, exactly. Don Bradman.
yeah,
Sacha.
yeah. Wow.
I think a lot gets said about sizes of horses.
Yeah,
do
me
you?
too. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I don't expect him.
He's not sort of freakishly small. Is
No,
he?
but
He's
I didn't buy into the whole. He's really going to improve a lot for this
I think
run.
he improved for the trip. Well, I think that's 2.5 miles.
It's a long way. It's another 6 furlongs.
I thought every time he's run, he's looked like stammering.
I'm not against him at all. I'm not against him.
Wow.
I'm
Doesn't
not.
sound
You're,
like it.
you're all on Broom.
Doesn't
I
sound
like
like it, does it? Yeah.
Yeah, Broom's a good-looking horse.
Broom
What
is.
happened
I know. It's all about looks, Steve.
Of course
As
it
we
is.
have proved
Absolutely.
that looks are no barrier
Absolutely.
Oh,
to
dear.
achieving a little bit
I
of
don't know
success.
why you brought that up. That was really embarrassing.
Well,
Good.
That's a look ahead to Epsom, despite whether you're into looks or not.
They wouldn't watch this podcast if they're into looks, would they? Let's be honest.
Hang on, we have had Johnny Ward on, haven't we?
Oh yeah, one for the ladies.
But good luck, especially to Franklin Tory, his last Epsom meeting. Good luck to him on his 3 rides, assuming obviously he's on Embley Upjohn, Soul Sister, and obviously Arrest. So best of luck
Good
to
luck
him.
in the jungle as well, Frankie.
Who knows? Before
I
we...
don't wish him good luck in any of those 3 races, personally. I'm just trying to think.
No, I want him to have luck. I don't want him to
I
win.
want him to have a really pleasant experience, but being
not
beaten
beat
by
yours, as you're
individually
saying.
races,
Have a
not
pleasant
win any of those
final
races.
ride in those 3 Group 1s, Frankie.
Absolutely. Oh, I agree with
To
that. Yeah. Safe.
assuage Steve's
Come home safely, Frankie.
slightly cynical.
Have a
look
bit
on
more luck in
things.
the Oaks than you had last year.
Yes.
Could we just
True.
have a little chat about the likelihood of disruption to the Derby?
Oh, I
Um,
thought we'd finished it. I thought you were winding up.
no, just before we close
Okay.
it off, 2 things. Disruption to the Derby, which we can talk about now, and then obviously there's a little news about primarisation I wanted to get your thoughts on. But
Okay.
I mean, they've got an injunction out, so
They have.
basically it allows anybody who's there associated with animal rising, they can be arrested on the spot. So that's a positive, but it's going to be very hard to stop it.
Hard course to police. I mean, it's, you know the area really well. There are so many ways in at Epsom. I really hope I'm wrong. I'd be very surprised if there's not disruption.
I agree. If Just Oil can disrupt the Chelsea Flower Show,
Yeah.
Nothing is sacrosanct.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a brief word on Premierisation before we go. That's come out in the news.
We
this
didn't
last
really do that subject to death, then, did we? The protesters. It was just like.
Well, there's nothing
quick-
much
quick
we can say
news
other
like,
than the fact
well,
that
no, it's probably going to happen.
just a nod. It's a nod to the fact that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
As long as there's no fireworks, that's fine.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
fireworks.
This weekend.
There won't
yeah.
be any fireworks.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
pretty certain of that.
Yes, that was awful.
But 300 fixtures have been cut from the jumps, or 300, sorry, races, not fixtures.
Mm.
God, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And 300 races cut from the jumps. Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4, there'll be 2 Premier meetings, 1 non-Premier meeting supporting it. And there'll be Sunday evening fixtures, a trial, 6 Sunday evening fixtures. Steve raises his eyebrows, Sam looks...
No, I'm just thinking, I feel sorry for the staff in that regard. It just can't be. It's a really a 7-day-a-week job, isn't it? And if it ends with Sunday night, there's so many different arguments for it. Racing needs to lose, I think, 500 fixtures. I think we've got far too much racing.
Yeah.
Then the nitty-gritty comes about where it does, and that's where all the arguments happen. In principle, I think the idea of what prize money there is being concentrated on the better level of races is a good thing. I think if you want to attract owners, and I think I personally prefer watching good class handicappers than class C's at Chelmsford. I do. Just being my own prejudice. You don't have a shortage of runners in those races, but it's pretty tedious sometimes. We've all worked in them. The racing's pretty ordinary. So I'm in favour of somehow the better racing being better rewarded, and there being fewer fixtures to concentrate. I understand from a racecourse's point of view that they're going to be less keen on it. Certain racecourses will lose money, so that's the problem.
The 300 jump races, are they just being sort of lopped off the 7 and 8 race cards, so becoming 6?
Yeah.
So is the punter or the race goer getting any better value? Not necessarily. I mean, I know we've all got to suffer a little bit of pain with this, but we're not really culling a lot of fixtures, are we? And you listen to a lot of jumps trainers, they're giving them an extended period off in August. That isn't a lot of use. Horses are back from their summer breaks, they're in work, they need jockeys around to ride work. Why not just have a complete, June, just have that month off in June, give everyone a chance to, while the horses are still out of grass, they come back in maybe 1st of July or middle of July.
And maybe even flat racing have a month off at some stage.
Yeah.
Maybe I agree. Again, not everything was better years ago, but you did have close seasons. And I'm not saying, all weather racing has changed the face of it, but I agree with Frank Price.
Frank Turner.
I completely agree. I think having a break is the simplest way of doing it. And I know people, there are certain jockeys who are trying to get a living all year round. I understand financially it might not be good, but I think having no jumps after Sandown until August or something would make much more sense to me.
And surely on that point, the one meeting, one jockey at one meeting, that must have helped in some regard for employment.
You'd like to think so, yeah. That was the idea behind it. Yeah.
Problem I have, I haven't really got a problem with it. If they want to trial 6 extra fixtures through the summer on a Sunday, the twilight fixtures, fair enough. We haven't got a chance of losing those fixtures. Chelmsford or Kempton, with a bit of snow or it goes below -1, -2, balls up like it did last year. Balls up being the appropriate sentence, really. We didn't work actively or agile. We weren't agile enough, as to coin a phrase with the BHA, to move those fixtures, to drag them back to the afternoons before the temperatures really dropped. That could happen again. People could all turn up at Chelmsford in February, early February. Temperature could go, track could ball up, and that's all a waste of time. It's a PR disaster written all over it for me.
Well,
not least for the staff.
There's so many different strands of arguments and so many different perspectives in which you can look at everything. Ultimately, not everybody's going to agree. 100%. That's the main issue, isn't it?
What about the window? What do you guys think between the 2 to 4 o'clock, showcasing those?
I think about that. It's not the way I would have gone. I don't hate the idea, but I'm just more on the fact that I think there should be fewer races at the weekend. I think that would happen automatically in a sense. The big races would be the race that are concentrated on. I don't know whether there's got to be this split. I've mainly done for television, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's the main.
So.
Look, I'm not against it. It's not something I would have thought of doing, but I can't say that I don't hate.
But if you watch ITV anyway, their programme will be structured like that with a 10 or 15 minute break between. So I don't really get that it improves turnover as such. And how many meetings would you have on a Saturday anyway? You might have 6, 7 at a push. But what happens when the Irish come in?
Yeah,
you know, the Irish.
absolutely.
You know, RTV will obviously still carry the Irish coverage. If we have a busy afternoon where we have York, Haydock, for instance, and one other RTV, which I can't think of at the top of my head, and then a couple of Irish as well, it's not going to be any different, is it really?
No.
And Chester have held their hands up and said, "Oh, look, you know, we're worried about this, we're worried about that." But I don't think it's going to affect Chester. I think Chester would always be sort of that second or third, you know, because of the races that they put on and the competitive. Yeah, maybe non-Premier.
Does the July Cup day, which is always the day that's size, does that still happen? Exactly the same?
Yeah, it's
So
York,
that's
isn't it? And
York,
Chester.
is it York, Ascot and Newmarket on the
Yeah,
same day?
and also I think there's a Chester card as well.
There is a Chester card, there always was, yeah. And they're big races at those meetings. And you know, individually the courses are irritated because the top jockeys may not end up at York because they're riding the July Cup. That changed, didn't it, when the July Cup was moved from midweek to the weekend. See, I think days like that aren't good. There's just too much of everything. You know, you can't properly concentrate.
And that's where
on it.
I thought they could have been more specific. They
Yeah.
could have identified the points in the calendar
agree.
which were congested and removed some and placed them in other positions.
Be agile.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah. But then again, I suppose they're trying to use a big brush to sweep things to make it to kickstart things, because how many times have we heard that things need to be done? There's lots of chat and very little gets done. So
Yeah, and
hopefully
look,
at least they're up and running.
Until these things have played out, and I might well be wrong with the Sunday nights, but until they're played out and we've trialled them for a couple of years, we won't know. And
No.
at least they're doing so. At least they're being proactive and doing something.
Agreed.
Well,
Right.
thank you.
Bring the gavel down.
Thank you very much for this. It has been a lot of fun. I hope it's been a pleasant experience.
It has. I mean, the broom part was the highlight for me.
Of course it is.
I hadn't
Of
heard that
course it
story.
is.
I've given you
It
a little
is,
bit
of
of
course it is.
ammo for the golf course
Broom
now.
ammo,
Steve.
yes.
Broom
Yeah.
ammo.
Yeah.
Can we sweep that one under the carpet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
not? Like we do with all our other losers.
Well,
Go on,
thank you very much to Steve Mellish, Sam Turner, and to you for joining us for this week's episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Don't forget, as always, if you'd like what you've heard or listened to, leave us a kind review or a pleasant review. Seems to be the word of the
Even
week.
neutral will settle for that.
On Apple
Feel free to mention
Podcasts
broom if you follow
or in the comments section on YouTube. We'll be back next week with Steve Ryder stepping into the chair. I'm away. Hopefully there'll be no embarrassments for Steve to bring up on Steve. But thank you very much for watching and good luck.